Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
Today we're digging into some material you shared with us. It's a YouTube transcript, and it's all about the Pi network.
That's right. And our mission really is to unpack what this source is saying about, well, two main things. The Pi coin's price, which has been all over the place, and what's actually going on with its apps, the ecosystem.
Okay, let's jump in. The source kicks off by highlighting something listeners are apparently feeling quite strongly. This frustration with the Pi price. It shoots up, then bam, it dumps before they can sell.
Yeah, leaving them kind of stuck, waiting for the next pump, the next bit of news or hype.
The source gets specific about this price roller coaster.
Right? It does. It mentions the launch around February 27th, priced at about $2.78.
Okay.
And it even hit, well, almost $3 on some exchanges, pretty much right at the start, an all-time high, briefly.
Wow, okay. But then the drop.
Oh, yeah. The source says it fell, like really significantly, down to around 7 cents.
7 cents from nearly $3. That's quite a tumble early on.
Definitely a roller coaster. And more recently, there was another surge.
Apparently so. The source talks about another wave of hype pushing it up again. It mentions figures like $1.24, maybe even $5. Seems a bit unclear exactly how high in that recent spike.
Right, the numbers vary a bit in the telling, but the point is it went up again.
But, crucially, the source makes it clear that after that spike, it fell back down again.
Exactly. And this leads to the core puzzle the source presents.
Which is?
Well, it describes the Pi community as, super loyal, really strong, lots of people just holding their Pi,
Right.
HO dealing, right?
Right, so if everyone's holding.
Then where's all the selling coming from? Why does the price keep getting pushed down so hard? That's the central question the source digs into.
And it offers some speculation.
It does. Quite provocative speculation, actually. It raises the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the Pi core team themselves are behind the selling pressure.
Whoa, okay. That's a pretty big suggestion. Does the source offer any, evidence for that?
Well, it points towards a tweet. This tweet apparently claimed that since launch, over just a few months, something like 5.4 billion Pi have been transferred between wallets.
5.4 billion. That's an enormous amount of Pi moving around.
It is. And the source emphasizes it wasn't just one big move. It highlights repeated transfers. Huge chunks, like 50 million Pi at a time, moving again and again.
Okay, 50 million Pi transfers repeatedly. So how does the source connect that to the core team?
The interpretation hinges on how you get Pi. According to the source material, the only way is through mining.
Right.
So if that's true, having these massive amounts, billions of Pi available to be transferred, suggests someone must have mined or been allocated a huge stash early on. The implication is that points to the core team.
Ah, okay. Because who else would have access to that kind of quantity right from the start?
Exactly. And so the source concludes, or at least strongly suggests, that this large holding, potentially by the core team, could be the source of the selling.
So the idea is they might be sort of gradually leaking Pi onto the market, cashing out slowly.
That's the picture the source paints. A slow leak or gradual selling that constantly caps the price, making it hard for it to really take off and stay up.
So no matter how much the community holds, this potential overhead supply keeps prices in check. That's a significant angle from the source on the price issue.
Definitely food for thought. But let's pivot, like you said, because the source also tackles another big topic.
Right, the apps, the ecosystem. There's been skepticism, people saying Pi hasn't delivered the promised apps, that the use cases aren't there.
Yeah, that where are the 100 apps question. The source directly addresses this. It basically says, that's not true.
Okay. How so?
It says you can actually see the apps yourself. You just need to use the Pi browser.
Ah, so it gives instructions.
Yep. Go into the Pi browser, log in, and then find the button or link at the bottom that says Explore the Ecosystem. Click that.
Simple enough. And what does the source say you'll find in there? What kinds of apps?
Well, it mentions seeing actual Mainnet apps. It lists a few examples. Map of Pi, something called Futility Pi Game, App Link of Pi World, For School, things like that.
Okay, so specific apps are visible.
Yes, and also apps related to vendors. Plus, it notes there are categories set up. Sections for testnet apps, commerce or e-commerce apps, though marked as coming soon, perhaps, and a section for games that's already there.
Okay, categories. And did the source look into any of those, like the game section?
It took a quick peek, yeah. It mentioned one called the Initial Game.
And a verdict.
Described as very simple, easy to play, maybe gets boring quickly. And importantly, the source couldn't see any obvious way to actually earn Pi from playing it.
Okay. No clear earning mechanism there. Was there another game?
Yes, something called the Python game. With this one, the source thought there might be an earning system involved.
Oh.
It noticed a premium option, cost 2 pi to access. But without paying that premium, again, the source couldn't find where the earning part was.
I see.
And it also described this Python game as, like, fast, a bit difficult to play.
So based on that quick look in the source, the games are there. But how you earn pi through them isn't immediately obvious, at least not without paying in one case.
That seems to be the takeaway from the source's brief exploration. The structure is there, apps are listed, but the immediate utility or earning isn't jumping out, at least in those examples.
Right. But the source does connect this back to the listener, to you, right? Why should you care about these apps now?
It does. The suggestion is that getting familiar with these apps, testing them out, is actually pretty important.
Why is that?
Because if, and it's an if, but if this whole Pi ecosystem, these apps, actually take off and become successful, widely used, then you, having been involved early, mining Pi, maybe trying the apps, you'd potentially be ahead in the line. You'd understand the system, maybe find opportunities to earn within it before others catch on.
Okay, so it's about potential future advantage. If Pi succeeds, early engagement pays off. That makes sense from the source's perspective.
Yeah. Now, there's one more practical point the source brings up. It's about selling Pi.
Ah, yes. The difficulty some people still have actually converting their Pi to, regular money, even after the mainnet stuff.
Exactly. The source acknowledges this is still a hurdle for some users. They can't easily sell on exchanges or find other ways.
So does the source offer any solution or workaround?
It highlights a method using a direct vendor. Apparently, the source provided contact info, a link or a number for a vendor.
A direct contact. How does that work?
You transfer your Pi directly to that specific vendor's wallet, and they would then send you money back in your local currency.
Is this a new thing?
Actually, no. The source points out this kind of direct vendor deal was happening even before Pi's official launch.
Okay.
But it's mentioned as still being relevant now, a potential option for people struggling to sell through other channels today.
Got it. So an alternative method, though maybe not for everyone, is still out there, according to this source.
Right. So let's try and tie these threads together from the source material.
Okay. Recap time.
We've got this puzzling price situation, big drops despite a loyal community. And the source throws out this pretty significant speculation about core team holdings potentially being the selling pressure.
Yeah, the 5.4 billion Pi transfer figure is key there.
Yeah.
Then there's the app ecosystem.
Right. The source argues the apps are there, you can find them in the browser, categories exist, but that initial look at games didn't reveal obvious earning paths, though the potential future value is emphasized.
And finally, the practical side. Selling Pi can still be tricky for some, but this direct vendor route is presented as an ongoing alternative option.
It paints a picture, doesn't it? A project with this huge, dedicated user base, really ambitious plans for apps and utility.
But also facing these fundamental questions.
Yeah.
Price stability, who holds the supply, and, is the ecosystem generating real value or earning potential yet?
Exactly. It's complex. Which leads us to a final thought, something for you to chew on based on this source.
Okay, what is it?
Given this tension, the source highlights you've got the community wanting the price to go up, holding on tight, versus the possibility of huge amounts being sold off, potentially by the core team.
Yeah.
How crucial will the success or failure of this developing app ecosystem be? I mean, if those apps start generating real-world value, real use cases, maybe even real earning opportunities, could that finally be enough to overcome the selling pressure and change the dynamic for the average person just mining Pi on their phone? Or will that potential supply overhang always be there?
So can the ecosystem success outweigh the potential impact of large holders selling? That's definitely something to ponder.
Indeed. A key question emerging from this deep dive into the source material.